Hi Shawn, I want to welcome you to my shop. I appreciate you letting me work on your 68 Camaro here. And the doors you've got these aftermarket handles you're trying to get in there, and it looks like you've had a lot of trouble getting them, somebody to install them where they will work. The driver's side door is a lot worse than this. This is a passenger side door, and I've started working on the driver's side door a little bit, but I wanted to show you a little what I'm dealing with. So right now when I have these handles in here, they're sticking out a couple of millimeters quite far, and they have to be at the surface level of this door here. So what I'm going to try to do is recess these in by making some shims, shim these back in, and since all this metal work is already welded in place, if I cut all this out and then did some more welding, it would be a lot of shrinking and stretching this metal. So I'm going to try to just stretch and shrink what you have here, get all this metal tamed down. So I'm going to get this handle back down in there, then I'm going to start working on getting this surface in good shape, and if I can get all this locked down to where I can finish it out, then I'm going to work on making use an actuator for the inside, some linkage. What they have here is just a push rod, and the way these two, the way this one pushes in and the other one pushes down, it makes it difficult for that to work properly all the time. So I will work on the actuation of that once I am sure I can go forward with everything I've got to do to the outside surface of this. I think I've got your doors ready to go to the blast shop. So I've saved everything that was done. I put these on my flat table over there. I've got a big flat steel plate over there, and actually pushed these whole landings where they're welded in there, pushed them out and pushed this one out. This one did really well. It was down in there maybe 2.5 millimeters. And I was able to push that out, and as that come out and dolly all that, this one is just going to be an extreme thin layer of the Duraglass over that one. And same for this one. I had to do a lot of shrinking right in this area, and shrink all that out, and then make it where it's strong and doesn't oil can. And then once I get that down, then I have to work that down like that, where it's just like that. So when you block that, it's going to be perfect. And also, I had to set these back a little bit deeper. They were out too far. And I made shims that I've got glued right on each one of those. There's 4 of them on there. And if they happen to come off between building these doors and stuff like that, I've made you 4 more shims. And it's just a little washer, 3/16 washer. But I've got you another set of shims in case you lose them. But they should stay on there. But anyway, I've moved with those shims. It moved these down in the pocket. Let's see, that's that one. It moved these down in the pocket just a little bit, and then I've got the face of that under this straight edge right here. So it's just perfectly over it. So I think that's a good spot as well. So I'm gonna get these things finished up and send these to the blast shop. Got your little push rods made. Did the self-lubricating ball joints on the end, and that turned out pretty cool, and that'll last a long time. There won't be any slack in it, and it'll hold all that tight. I made you brackets for the to go on here. Put some stainless steel bolt screws in them, a little bit longer, so that have a place to bolt that. That'll bolt on there and then hook to your latch. And I've got all that set. So from the pivot point right here to right there, the amount of stroke I've got to have is 35 millimeters. And that's how much stroke it takes to operate the latch. So when this is at the right spot, it's going to trigger that latch. But a lot into that timing on that link from that center point, if that makes sense. And also doing it that way, it allows you to make this work as easy as possible. So I've got as least counter leverage against this as possible. The further I'd go out, the harder it'd be to push. And the closer to the center line, the easier it is. But still have to have enough distance in the length of the stroke to actuate the latch. So now the way that I have it, when this door latches, just get latched, then you come in here and you go push this with your thumb, and then you'll grab it with your fingers right there, and then releases. I mean, it works perfectly. Push that with your thumb, grab it, release it. So now you can sit there and see your push rod, and when that opens, see how good that works. And those are 2 self-lubricating ball joints in there, and and that'll work and last a long time, and it's adjustable if you need to adjust it a little bit. So I'm going to move forward, get these doors, the other one up to this point, and then get them blasted and pickled and epoxied, and then these things will be ready to go home. Shawn, I got your doors back. Before I show you them, I want to show you what I've got going over here. I've got all your parts stripped out of the doors and everything labeled of what door it came out of. Here's your little push rods I made with the self-lubricating ball joints, and they're super tight. There won't be any rattling out of those. All your pivots, this is your left side pivot, and I put an L on it for left and R on the other for right. You can see where those glued on spacers, where I had to set this back in the door just a little bit. Got them glued on both ends, and they're on there pretty good, but you could knock one off or lose one, so I've made you some more, and I've got the other one marked. These I let soak in my vat for quite a while, probably 30 hours, and then I took and brushed them all up inside there the best I could, and then blew it all out, washed them all out with hot water, and then blew it all out with compressed air, and then lubricated all the pivots and actuators and made it all work as good as it can. And this is where I added on for the push rod, so you can thread it in there, bolt it in there, and put some paint on it. So I did the other one the same way, and this is kind of what I was talking about on that pivot. So this is your pivot point right there, and at that distance, it's about 30 millimeters of travel. And with my ball joint and stuff, that's right where I am. I'm right in that range, so I need about 30 millimeters of travel, and that's where I put it on this handle. So your pivot on your handle is right here, and then I measured the travel that I wanted it to when the handle's out far enough to be able to grab it with your 2 fingers. So you got to push the handle and it come out enough to be able to grab it and then pull it. Well, it does that at about right here, and that's where I put the ball joint pivot on the handle, and then that gets it as close to the center as possible, which makes this work as effortlessly as it possibly can. The closer I can get that to that pivot, the more leverage you have on it, the easier it works. And then here's the holes. I've got to plug weld all those holes, and I'll try to dolly some of that back out, but your doors look pretty good. And inside here, so you got down in there pretty good. So I will blow all that out and pre-clean it and pickle all down inside there. All this, I've straightened all the metal I could in this. Some of these areas were bent and stuff, and got all that adhesive and sticker off the back of it before I sent it. So they're in pretty good shape. And then we'll clean this out. Not sure exactly what I'm going to do right there. It's either going to get welded or some glass in that. Maybe a combination of both. Then weld that. And then same here. I ain't decided exactly how that's going to do that yet. But yeah, those are in good shape. And then in here, while we're doing this, I got another run of epoxy already in here. All this stuff gets pickled and epoxied and as well. But I got your handle, so I resurfaced the tops with a file and sandpaper, made the outline real nice. That image looked real nice and clean, and then rolled that outer edge just a little bit, just enough to get some primer in and some paint in. And then the same on this inside, where when you grab it, it'll feel nice and smooth right there, and give a place for that paint to go. But yeah, those are looking good. I got your doors back from the blast shop, and since then I've welded up the holes that were down through here where they pulled that dent out. I've welded up the whole extra hole that you had in your rear view mirror, welded up some holes on this one, did some straightening on them, and then both of them I have completely pickled with Pickle X20, and what that does is etch that, it neutralizes any oxidation that's on the door, and then just puts a micro fine etch over the entire door, which the epoxy loves. That epoxy will bite in and glue to that thing, and it'll be there a long time. And then neutralizing that rust and stuff is so important, because when I give you these doors back, they're going to be in that epoxy, and then everything will be built on top of that. When you get it high built and guide coated and painted and buffed and all that, you want to make sure that this metal was sealed off properly, or you'll have problems later on. So I pay a lot of attention to what I'm doing here. I always work, once they get pickled, I always wear gloves. Tomorrow it's supposed to be about 75 degrees, so it's a perfect day to get that epoxy on there. There won't be any humidity in the air, and get these sealed off. This is the most crucial time for blasting or stripping a car down, is when that metal is exposed to the atmosphere. And if it starts absorbing moisture or starts oxidizing before you get your sealers on it, it can cause problems on down the line. So I just want to show you how much care and detail I'm taking on getting these things sealed and properly epoxy primed. And then once I get them in primer, then I can handle them, and I'll be able to sand out around there and do the work I've got to do as far as the filler work. And then I'll go back and put another coat of epoxy over all that and lock all that down, and then these things will be ready to come back to you. So I've got both doors that way. I'm going to put, I've worked down there in the bottom. I've had him blast all down across the bottom of it. I've worked my Pickle X20 down in there, then air blew all that out, cleaned all that out, and then I'll put epoxy down the inside of that too to help in any oxidation or rust that may try to come through later. It won't now. It'll be neutralized and sealed off. Went ahead and just put the epoxy on your doors, and I was able to get a pretty good coat on every bit of it. I even shot down inside of it. I put the gun inside there and shot all down that seam as good as possible, and all up in there and all down that post. Really took some time to try to get that epoxy all up in everywhere, because everywhere it's been blasted and then pickle X'd all around where it's overlaid around the edges there. The door skin's wrapped around. I got that little seam down through there real good on every bit of it. So that is a pretty good sealed off door right there. Blasted, pickled, outgassed, and epoxy. Come a long way on the doors. Once I got all the epoxy cured outgas and I set it out in the sun a few days, then I came back here and sanded all this down in the areas where I was going to put my Duraglass, and I mocked all this up and set this in place, sealed all the way around it, and then put a thin coat of Duraglass all over this area right here, and then blocked all that flat, and then cut all this back out and rolled these edges on both these pieces, and then did the same with a little lightweight 3M filler. And while I was doing it, I filled about, gosh, I don't even know, it was a bunch of little dings here and there, and there's still a few here and there. Just if I saw one, I went ahead and filled it so while I was spreading. So I did both doors like that, and then now I've got 3 coats of epoxy on it all, and you can see how nice these handles look, and I epoxied every bit of it. I had some glue, and I glued the spacers on these, and it should stay on there. It's pretty strong, but if one of those gets knocked off, but it could, but I doubt it's going to come off. And then I went ahead and torqued this pivot pin in here because you don't have to take it back out. This will come out through this hole on the inside, so you could just leave this torqued in place like where it is, because it has a little bit of a spring load on it, and it also a little difficult to put this piece in, and there's a right and left. So since there's shim adjusted and in place, I was just leaving those in here. You could mask the face of this off just to keep high build and fillers getting on the on where this bolt's on right there. And remember this little plate right here, it'll rotate. So where this mounts onto it, it'll rotate, and one side is thicker than the other, and you need the thicker side up, because it gives you just a little bit of clearance down through here when this goes in. So if it's the other way, it'll be too deep, and you'll see that, but I'm just make you aware when you put those in. But it makes it a lot easier with that on in place. All it takes is the 2 screws into this. So I can run this right up in there, 2 screws, this handle's in, 2 screws, it's out. There's a little spring at the bottom. You can just push it down to the side, and it'll stay in there and stay loaded. And then when you put this in, you can just kind of pick it up and put it right on this, and it will load this for the handle release. So I'll show you what that spring looks like inside here. And yeah, these things are about done. I'm going to start putting this all together and kind of show you how it goes together, and then when you get them, it'll be easier for you to put them together. And this is the piece I was talking about that is it'll rotate, and that side is shorter up here, and this one sticks up a little above this landing right here, and that's the side you need that on. but 2 screws, that goes right back in there. A lot easier than having to take this other piece out. And then down in here, see if I can get some. All right, down in here, there's the spring, and the other end of the spring is over here on this side, and you can just drop it right down on the side of this metal down here, and keep it out of the way, and then put your handle in, then you just pop it right up onto the handle itself. It's probably hard to see in that picture right there, but right there, that little metal around the handle hole, you can just pop that spring down below it, put your handle in and out, and then just pop that spring up. I just want to show you too, leave the push rod on the handle. The handle will go in, because that one's kind of hard to get on there. I've got it on there nice and tight, probably no reason to ever take it off of there. And then you can adjust it this way if you needed to adjust it that way. But definitely put that nut on if you take these apart before you put this handle in, and then put the latch in. Then you can just drop this down and put the nut on that. For sure, it's a lot easier. Here they are, finally all done with these handles, and the epoxy's ready to go. I did a light scuffing on it. It'll need to be sanded, then high build and guide coat and all that. And there's still a few little blemishes here and there, but I got the most part of them. And got your latches in place, and you can see how good they work now. This passenger door, you better push it with your thumb, grab it with your fingers, and latch. Released it. Driver's door, push it with your thumb, grab it with your fingers, release. Works like a champ. So yeah, they are ready for you to come and get.